welcome to another exciting episode of the Bent, Twisted, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. My name is Jeff Harrison. I'm joined by my lovely hostess,
Leslie Spoor.
Yeah, and if there's a little bit of, I was going to say, if there's a little bit of delay, it could be in technology where, it's like I don't have that kung fu. And if you don't know what that's talking about, look it up. I'm sure there's a video there where my lips are moving and no words are coming out yet. Sometimes there may be delay because she's in a different part of the world than I am today. And so there may be delay. So Leslie, how the heck are you?
I'm pretty awesome, actually. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful day here today, and it's getting stuff done and highly productive. And we're doing a podcast, which I always love.
Cool. Hey, if this is your first time joining us, thank you for joining us. But also, we just finished up a series on the challenge as a business owner will face in the first 12 months, and to kind of like, first of all, shine some lights on them that you're not the only one that would have that challenge, but also to give you some solutions. So go back and check those out. And, we appreciate you being here today. Today, we are kind of getting back on our entrepreneurial bicycles, if you will, although they be electric bike. That's the best way to go. And we're going to talk about things that are near and dear to our hearts. And today, Leslie, I want to ask you, and make sure if you're watching today, either record this or get out some paper and pencil. When I ask this question, you answer it also while I'm asking Leslie. Leslie, what really drives your business?
Well, what drives my business is referrals and testimonials from existing clients. Those are, and real estate agents and HOA managers, those people that we do work for that appreciate and value what we do. They are I guess you'd say word of mouth, basically, is that they tell us stuff in this day and age of online reviews being so critical to everything. Some businesses like ours, it has a little bit of difficulty getting a Google review or a Yelp review. However, we have tons and tons of testimonials that are on our website and on our Facebook pages about people who love what we do. And most importantly is them telling their friends and colleagues that we can help them. And, it's all about perception of value, right? So we want clients to value what we do. And then when they do value it, then they refer us. And that's the best testimonial we can receive.
So let me make sure. So really what drives your business is positive reviews?
Yes.
Or positive customer service?
Yes. Yeah, well, we have to do positive customer service in order to get positive reviews. So internally managing customer service is, I have a way to do that, and that's something we'll talk about today. But how do we control the level of customer service in order to keep our clients happy? And I'll tell you something. Today, people have no patience. So they send you an email on a Sunday. They want an answer on a Sunday. Or they leave you a voicemail, and if you don't respond to it within, minutes, they'll move on to the next place. So you really have to find a way to be quick and effective and approachable and measure the job you're doing, keeping your clients happy.
Yeah, so I just want to peel this back a little bit more, because within your statement, there are many, many truths and answers in there that are really gold nuggets. So when you say that really what drives your business is, I'm going to say, exceptional customer service, especially because where you live in or what business you're in. But that probably could be really good for almost any business. But when it comes to that, is that like the filter of all things? In other words, it means, hey, when you're training somebody, you're training them to deliver and know what exceptional customer service looks like, or exceptional work looks like, that will get exceptional customer service.
That's a good point. It's difficult to teach somebody to have a customer service mentality. You have to have that innately. There's two kinds of
Wait a minute. How do you know that? Like when you're hiring somebody, how do you know if somebody's innately they're going to be good at customer service?
Well, here's the difference. one kind of an employee or a person thinks from a customer service perspective, what can I do to make your client's experience better? And they get their sense of self-worth and satisfaction from doing a good job. The other kind of person is an employee mentality, or the what's in it for me? What do I get out of this? Right? I'll do the job because this is the job you hired me for, but what am I going to get? Instead of thinking about what the client's going to get. Those are the two difference. And you can subtly find that out during interviews by asking them questions and the questions they ask you. If they're asking about, do I have to work on the weekends versus, I would prefer to make sure that everything's taken care of for a client, even if it goes over a little bit. There's a difference there in customer service versus employee mentality. That might have not been the very best definition, but you're really looking for people that already have a customer service mentality built into them. Caregivers, teachers, people that work in the service industry already. Those people tend to have, it's more of a caregiver personality for our business, right? I'm not talking about concierge business solutions. I'm talking about executive errands. So for executive errands, you have to have a caregiver mentality, not in a convalescent way, but in a, I want to make somebody's life better way. Right.
So let me make sure. Okay. So when you're hiring somebody, you've already identified some certain segments of the market that say, hey, if they've done these other things in their life and they've done them well for maybe a long period of time, they probably, not guaranteed, but they probably have those skill sets innately that we're looking for that will help keep our customer service at a very high level.
Right. And let me give you a really fine line. You would think that a marketing person, somebody with marketing background, would be ideal, right? They're out schmoozing with people and they want people to be happy and they want to do whatever it takes to do the job well. They are terrible for our business if they're working in our business.
Ouch.
And I'll tell you why. Not because they're not good people. They're excellent people and I love what they do, but because they're a social animal. They need to have interaction with people and talk to people and schmooze with people and, that water cooler talk and the personal interface that comes with marketing. They need that. They thrive on that. Our job is very solitary. We're taking care of people's homes when they're not here, that you rarely meet with the customer face to face. You could go all day and never talk to anybody except a vendor or somebody within our own company. You may talk to clients, but by email. So it's extremely solitary existence. So if you're somebody who craves and requires personal interaction, this is not the job for you. And that's what I mean by that. So you have to learn, and it took me a long time to learn this. You have to learn what works best for your particular company and then implement the tools and techniques to monitor that to make sure that you can maintain it.
It seems like somebody and I don't say this in jest, but as you describe this person, it feels like somebody that could be a long haul trucker or somebody who works for a FedEx or UPS, that they really are, delivering, no pun intended, but they're doing it on their own. Like, every now and then I'll see my UPS driver or my FedEx driver, but they're really used to working on their own and delivering great customer service.
Right. Yeah. It's a solitary job. Ours is a solitary job. Now, if you have retail, I was going to say, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You said it's a solitary job.
Yeah. If you have retail, like I started implementing before retail, I started implementing monthly meetings just so our team could get together because we don't even see each other. Right. So I have a once a month meeting where everybody gets together. It's a team environment and we laugh and joke. And I do training during those meetings and problem solving and discussions of status for different clients so that my people have a sense of team and camaraderie. Otherwise, they would see nobody all the time. And that's not healthy either. In retail, you may want a more social person. How can I help you? What can I do for you? Those people that come up and eat those little bugs that you want to say, no, I'm fine, I'm just looking. But those kind of people are good in retail, and you need them. So you have to find what works for your own business, and then, like I said, and then put the tools in place to monitor that. For all businesses, in my opinion, in all businesses, perception of value is everything. So it isn't about what we do so much as how the client experiences it, right? It's what do they value?
Give us an example of what you mean there, because that's really vague.
Oh, it's vague.
I
Okay.
think so.
So okay. So when you think about what's in it for me, which we mentioned already for employee mentality, when I say to somebody, you need to look at business from a what's in it for me from the client's perspective. Okay, from the client's perspective. So, in other words, how do I create value that they feel is value? I can think something's valuable, but if the client doesn't think it's valuable, then it has no value. And so, I hope that didn't sound like a word salad, but what I'm saying is that
Just don't laugh.
I'm not going to laugh like that anyway. So, you have to create value. One of the ways to do that in our world is quick response times and under promising and over delivering. Right.
So can I stop you there for just a second?
Sure.
Okay. So when you say prompt response times, so I'm curious, is that your guidance, or is that the guidance from or the expectations from your customers that you have spent time understanding, hey, what's important to them, so that then you can train those people who are already good at customer service, but they need to know the details of every one of those customers, right? I mean,
exactly.
Is that the case? Or do you
Yes.
just say, hey, this is where we're at, and we're hoping this is covering all of our customers?
No, first of all, you have to learn the personality of the clients that are assigned to you. So we have quite a number of clients, and we have quite a few employees. And so each of them have a suite of clients that they support. And their goal is to make every single client feel like they're the only client, right? So if you never tell a client, I'm too busy to get back to you. It may be, I need to research that and I'll get right back to you and then do that. But it can never be, I don't have time for you today. That would be a horrible thing to say. So clients want to feel understood and appreciated and respected. And so in our world, we want to make sure that we communicate that feeling to them. And one of those ways to do that is to do what we say we're going to do it when we say we're going to do it, or sooner, and give them personalized attention so that they feel valued. We truly feel that way about our people, our clients. So it isn't a stretch to do it, but teaching people how to do that can be sometimes a little bit of a learning curve. And one of the ways we accomplish that is having written policies and procedures, which we talk about quite often. So much stuff comes back to written policies and procedures to dictate how to do these things so that we are consistent in the quality of what we provide. Including, I have procedures that talk about how to write emails, what terminology to use when you're talking to a client, or when you're writing an email to a client, or when you're updating their inspection forms. How do we say things for consistency, for quality, and for communicating value to the client, right? So one thing we don't ever do is use pronouns. We never say, I did this, I did that. It's always start with an action word. Drove to, went by, picked up, delivered, start with an action word. It's a fragmented sentence, but that's fine. You want to be succinct in what you're doing. And if you do have to use a pronoun, it's always a we or an our, because we're trying to create the perception that the company is the one providing the service, not the individual, which is true, but we need to communicate that because people, being humans, can get attached to other people. You've seen that happen all the time. I see it with real estate agents when they're holding hands through escrow and the buyer, and they get done with escrow and the buyer's got a new home and the real estate agent wants to move on to a new listing. And the buyers get separation anxiety. Well, wait, you were here holding my hand for, 6 weeks and now you've just left. Well, we don't want them to feel that way, right? So we have to, and I have ways for real estate agents to avoid that complication, but you just want to have defined procedures that create that value for the client. For example, when we write things, I told you we're consistent how we write them. And so when a client can log into our database and see a month's worth of their work, it all looks exactly the same, right? The way it's written, the formatting, the punctuation, the syntax, everything is the same. So you get a sense of quality just from that. I've seen other people who using a system who put in all kinds of mishmash stuff and it's all over the place and it doesn't even, when you look at it, I know this is probably kind of weird, but when you look at it, just look at it on the screen. I want them to see the quality of it by just looking at the way it's put together, right? Whereas some people just have a little bit of here, a little bit of there. It's all over the place. They use different words. It's just a mess. And so to me, there's nothing wrong with it being a mess if that's how you operate, right? And if that's what your clients expect. But I think that there's a lot of subliminal value that can be achieved by taking a second to do it more consistently. So the client, they may not even realize the perception that they have of it until they see it done this way. And it really makes a huge difference. I've had clients comment on it and say, everything you guys do is so professional and so nice. I really appreciate it. And I don't think they even 100% fully understand why they feel that way, if that makes sense. Not to be insulting to them, but just because it's so subliminal. Subliminal marketing, as you know, is huge. And that's even applies into how you create value for clients, if that makes sense. Is that still confusing? Did I explain that well? I'm not sure.
You did. So, the question was what really drives your business? And again, you said it's customer service. I want to give an example. We talked about off air. And one of our clients, he owns a company that cleans built-in barbecues. And maybe 3 years ago, when we first began, he's a data guy. He collects all kinds of data, which I love because decisions can be made on data, not a gut feeling. And so at the point, he said he wanted to add more customers. He wanted to get more sales. I asked him, out of your database, I said, how many people or how often do the people who are in your database hire you for your services? And he said, well, about a third of them will have their barbecue cleaned once a year. So let's say 300, about 350, not quite 350 a year. The goal was to get to 1,000. He wanted to be able to say, hey, I got 1,000. I said, so let's mathematically do it. I said, how many names you need in your database? And he said, well, 3,000. Well, we met this past week and he has 3,100 names in there. And he is hitting that number of 1,000 a year. And he started talking about all these other ways to get more customers, and I said, well, are they really doing what drives your business? He says, what do you mean? I said, well, actually what's driving your business is not putting an ad over here or sending out mailers that you have no way to track. You have no follow-up on who opened it up. I said, none of that. I said, yeah, you might have somebody call or somebody drive and say, hey, I saw your van out there, whatever. But I said, is it really driving your business? He says, I guess really not. I said, so why don't we only focus on doing things that drive your business? And for him, I said, why don't we put together a free giveaway for your ideal customer to get a free barbecue cleaning? And he said, well, they already have their barbecue cleaned. I said, no, I'm not talking about to your current database. I said to the other people. I said, because if somebody signs up to have their built-in barbecue cleaned for free, what do you think they already have? And he said, well, they probably have a built-in barbecue. I said, and isn't that your ideal customer? He said, well, yes. I said, well, why don't we get them to do that? And so my point being is, it's real easy to get distracted. And this is the whole thing about, it's easy to get distracted by bright, shiny objects. Like, somebody came in and said, well, you can get in all these groups in Facebook for this homeowner situation. I said, yes, you can. I said, but it's not something you're just going to go in there and start selling people in this new group in PGA West or wherever it was. I said, what do you have to do? I said, you have to build a relationship. And I said, do you have the time or energy to spend, 6 to 20 hours a week doing that? And I said, are you going to get any names from that? And he says, no, I don't have that much time. And he said, I don't know how to get the names off of there to get in my database. I said, so is that really what's driving your business? He's like, okay, I get it. We're going to put names there. I said, that is something that Leslie is really good at. She's one of these people that say, hey, I can harness the sun, put it through a magnifying glass and start a fire. But if you don't focus, as she says, stay in your lane, man, you can get picked up for drunk driving because you're weaving all over the road and it's not doing any good. So This is an example of saying, hey, what really drives your business? That's the part I want you to write down. Customer service for Leslie, because she works in a very high end or high net worth individual type of environment, is ultra valuable, because while she may not have 1,000 5-stars on her Google business profile, that's not where she's getting her referrals. That's not where the testimonials are coming from. They're coming in between from a neighbor saying, yes, this is who I use, this is who I use. They're probably never going to Google business profile. They're trusting the fact that Leslie told me that this person is a great, and I'll give you a perfect example. We just about finished our remodel in our kitchen. And, I asked Leslie for a referral to help. And she said, well, I have somebody who works for me. She came over to meet with my wife. My wife fell in love with her. They got another person to help with the cabinets. That worked out great. I already had a contractor, and it's just been a beautiful thing. I never once looked at their Google profile to see how many 5-star reviews they had. I went 100% based on what? My trust in Leslie. And that's where her business lies. And if your business is in that way, then boy, you better focus on that, folks. Any last thoughts on that, or additional thoughts on that?
Well, I wanted to talk about how we make sure that the customer is perceiving that they're getting good customer service. Is that part of the next piece of this, or is that? No.
Well, I my next one says, is it cotton candy or a rock? So yeah, it could definitely be in that. Yeah.
But I'd rather have cotton candy, but I know that's not the good one. I know the good one is the rock, but I'd rather have the cotton candy.
Yeah. And quite frankly, some of your customers, they may be that they want the cotton candy. Like if you have as an example, if you're putting together a music festival and it's a one and done deal, you better be serving a lot of cotton candy. Because it's not something you're doing over and over again. But if you want a long-term builded business like Leslie with over 2 decades in her business, then by golly, you better build on rock. Good foundation.
Right. And this is how we do this. I mean, as you know, and maybe our listeners don't know yet, but they will. We have a state-of-the-art software system. It's an ERP system that we developed for our business, that we market to other companies through Concierge Business Solutions. So we built this software system to manage all the data for executive errands. And the key to this is customer service. So let me explain how that works. If I'm doing a task for a client, we put it in the system and we make sure that we monitor if there are any past due tasks. because we don't want any past due tasks. Remember, we're supposed to do things when we say we're going to do them, and we're supposed to get them done as quickly as we can get them done, because that gives that perception of value to the client. So we can keep track by date of when this stuff was supposed to be done and monitor it. Same with quotes. If a client has requested us to do something and we have to quote it, paint a wall, or have the HVAC serviced, or have the house cleaned, whatever it is, and we need to give them a quote, we have the ability to track that in our database and say, this is when the service was requested. This is when we had the property walk with the vendor. So do I have the quote yet or not? Have I sent it to the client? And so I can monitor that and see, and I have date parameters in there that says, we've got to get this done within this specified number of days. Right. And if it doesn't fall within that parameter, it pops up as an outlier saying, hey, look at this because it's a problem. Right. Same with schedules. Is a schedule past due or not? So we have all these little tools in the software that tells us that we're getting things done when we promised they would get them done, so that our clients will have a perception of value. I can't tell you how many times a client has said to me, I can't believe you did this so fast. Right? Because most people will say, yeah, I'll do it, and then either not commit to a time frame or miss that commitment. Like I said, we don't want things to fall through the cracks. That's the worst that can happen. And when I see other companies that are out there trying to do similar services to what we do, lifestyle management concierge services, and they don't have a way to track all the commitments that they've made and all the tasks that need to be done, they are going to fail, because you can only manually track this stuff for about 3 to 5 clients. That's it. After that, it's impossible, because you'll be up at night. You'll say, oh, gosh, I remember to do this. I remember to do that. That's where you come into twisted at bet, right? It's like, oh, my gosh, I was there. That's why I developed this system, because the data, today is all about data, right? Today, meaning not this podcast, but meaning the world, is all about data. Thank God for you, because that's what you do. You're a data person too. So I believe in tracking, monitoring, and managing the data in order to create perception of value, so that clients will say, my gosh, this company's professional. They do what they say they're going to do. They anticipate what I need. There's so many ways to do this. And so in that case, what I build is a rock. It's not like some feathery light thing that it comes and it goes. It's inconsistent. It melts in your mouth, and in your hands. It's not like that. The cotton candy is sweet and it's beautiful and it's enjoyable, but it doesn't last. A rock, on the other hand, may not be pretty, may be pretty, may not be pretty. I like citrine myself, but may not be pretty. But it will last forever, right? It will last forever. So you want to build your business in a way that lasts forever, right? You want to build it so that clients can depend on it. I don't care if you're selling widgets, making ice cream, no matter what you're doing, you need to build a rock with it. Does that analogy work for you, Jeff?
It does. It does. And I'm gonna toss one little piece in there of the beautiful thing about being someone who is the visionary of their business. Let's say like Leslie or myself, is you're not consumed by the day to day and then blindsided because your environment has shifted. She mentioned about her clientele at one point were baby boomers, and those baby boomers are now aging out. They're in the 80s and 90s, and her new clientele is now the 60-year-olds that used to be her ideal client. But those people have a whole different mentality of doing things. And one thing that jumped out at me is like, okay, well, those are a lot more DIYers, as you said. So it's like, does that, as the visionary, make you think, wow, what if I had more DIY things that I could give them to support them, that if they insist on doing it themselves, I'm still their resource. They're not accidentally going someplace else. I'll give you a perfect example. Many, many years ago in the golf business, I was at Mission Hills Country Club, And I started seeing the gutting of the golf business for a private country club. And what I mean by that is they said, well, we're going to try not to any longer have golf clubs in the golf club in the golf business or at the country club. I'm like, well, that makes no sense at all. But what I did is I was agile. I said, okay, then we're just going to offer custom fitted clubs. I don't have to have that inventory because it was expensive, and then I could still sell golf clubs. That solved that problem. The other thing was we're not selling enough caps. Well, let's make many different logos for our hats. And all of a sudden now it's fresh and new again, but they're still caps, right? That's
Right.
the advantage of being outside of the day to day and say, let me get up here and I've gotten on a ladder and I can see what's going on in the forest in front of us. And I think what Leslie's talking about, that's a real important thing when she said my customers are now younger, they're DIYer. And I'm curious, and I'm going to pass this over to you. Are you adjusting anything now to be more catering specific to those people?
We do our best to do it. A lot of them, because they don't feel that well, here's the thing. Quite often, most of them are first time second homeowners, and second homeowners are what are bread and butter, right? We take care of snowbirds. If you're a new snowbird, a new first time second homeowner, you're concerned about how long your retirement money is going to last, right? Because we all save money, but we don't know what the economy is going to do. We don't know what the stock market's going to do. We don't know how long our money is going to last. And so we're more prudent, especially in the beginning, about how we allocate those funds every month. We just invested in a second property. That's a big investment. Now, how much do I want to pay somebody to check my house or to run errands for me or do whatever? And so what we have found is that most of those are not our ideal client because they're so intent on doing it themselves, doing things themselves, that they don't see the value in what we provide for the money. However, if you get somebody who has, and I usually do it by cost of the house, I can kind of judge by the value of the home. So if the home's over $900,000 worth, generally speaking, those people do see the value in what we're doing, have been retired for longer, have made a bigger investment, and probably have had second homes in the past. So they know what it takes to take care of them. And their biggest piece of value is having that peace of mind, knowing there's somebody they can trust to take care of it when they're not here, right? The DIYers want to get a neighbor or a friend or somebody, and they just say, oh yeah, I don't even need to look at it. It'll be fine, until they get flooded the first time, and then they change their tune. But you can understand why they feel this way, because they don't know how long their money is going to last. And so they're just being prudent. And I get that. And I offer them I tell them, we are here for you for other things. Whatever you need, we can help you. But generally speaking, they are not our ideal clients. We have to find a specific income level or experience level, people that were CEOs, CFOs, upper level management, entrepreneurs in their prior life, people that understand the value of time, because that's all we're selling is time, right? We're trying to be able to give you the ability to be in two places at once. We'll do half of it, you do half of it, right? So if you value time over money, then people hire us and we have long-term clients. If you're worried about money over time, then there's no amount of what I can do is going to change how you feel about it, because I can't create that perception of value because you initially don't see it.
Right. So in that case, I'm gonna put a little marketing bow on that of like saying, well, then any kind of conversations you have, if you're presenting to, because I know you present to real estate agents quite often, is you're never selling on, it's a good deal to hire us. It's
Never.
always a time value for those higher end people who always, as you were explaining, I'm thinking, I always have a guy, right? I always have somebody I can call
Right.
because I'm sitting in the office and say, well, who can go to Cleveland? Well, it's not me, but I can hire. I've got somebody on line 3, right?
Right.
And so to me, are you having a different conversation when you're presenting? You're never really going for that. You'd hire us because it's a good deal.
Correct. Yeah. It's always about security, peace of mind, um, uh, issue prevention. Of course, insurance companies will give a discount if we check a home twice a month at least. When
Mm,
it's a second home, a lot of people don't know that because they feel that, but rightfully so, that if we catch an issue, uh, it will be less expensive and costly to remediate than it would be if it went for a month or 6 weeks or never. It just exacerbates the longer something sits, especially out here with the heat that we have. So, as a business owner, you have to be aware of how your clients think and how you can communicate that perception of value. Um, you said one thing I was going to respond to, and I've lost track of it. It'll come back up, I'm sure. Um, real estate agents. So, when I talk to real estate agents, I'm trying to solve their problem so they see the value in working with us, right? Again, it's always about what's in it for me from your potential client's perspective. And I like real estate agents because they have a built-in network of clients that we need, right? They have buyers and sellers and people that we want to work with. And they're hard to get to. Real estate agents are not the easiest people to convince to work with you because why? Their biggest fear is you'll steal my clients or somebody will steal them, right? Because they live and die by repeat business. So they don't want to give their clients to anybody, right? Their buyers and their sellers. So what I talk to them about is the value of rather than a client having separation anxiety because you've moved on to another listing, transition them to us and we'll give them the same level of customer service and handholding that you were doing during escrow. And when they're ready to come back to sell, well, we encourage them to go back to you. So then that way, we don't have realtors on staff. We're not looking to take your clients. We're not going to try to sell their homes. All we want to do is provide a good living experience for them while they're here in the desert. And the problem it solves for you is that separation anxiety so that they don't feel like you abandoned them. So they have a positive experience of the escrow process and of working with you. And that's what I'm talking about, creating perception of value and how it's what's in it for me. That, yes, we provide good services. We have to, that's required. But solving that problem for the real estate agent creates that perception of value from them and makes them want to work with us.
Well, I want to kind of tie a ribbon on it right here, where it comes back to as Leslie once again in all the conversation it came back to customer service
Always.
and making sure that all of her messaging, whether straight up or subliminally, was about customer service. And she did say something I want to tee it up for our next episode. And now it escapes me, but I think the whole idea here is when you know what really drives your business, it's so much easier to see it.
Right.
It's like I mentioned in our last episode. It's like a purple cow in a herd of black and white cows. Absolutely stands out. You know exactly what your mission is and what you're doing, and when you can do that, like as an example, Leslie, we said customer service. My other gentleman was adding more names to his database. When we can do that, we know his business will continue to grow. It just is a natural byproduct. We've seen that over 3 years. Um, so think about that long and hard. What really drives your business? Leslie, any last thoughts before we wrap up for today?
Nope, that's all I got. I hope you remember what our next topic is.
Okay, so the Bent, Twisted, and Exhausted Entrepreneurial Podcast, and you've been spending about the last 40 minutes with. I really appreciate that. And today we're talking about really making you think about staying on task. And as Leslie says, stay in your lane when it comes to what makes your business go. and Leslie's is customer service. And our case study was, hey, they just need more names in their database. Make sure their efforts are doing that. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jeff Harrison, along with
Leslie Spoor of Concierge Business Solutions.
We'll see you again next time on the Leslie,
the Bit Twisted and Exhausted Entrepreneur. Did I say it right? Podcast.
Yeah.
I can't say that word, by the way. So, entrepreneur. Whatever.
We'll see you next.
Business owner.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. If you're listening on one of our non-video programs, and what you want to see what we look like, you haven't seen us, we're always going to be on YouTube, on Leslie's channel or my channel, Jeff Harrison. So until next time, stay on task. Make sure you have that light shining through that magnifying glass that is absolutely on fire. Thank you, guys.
And subscribe.